I have proof.
Proof? What is that?
It's the truth. Read it.
This is a lie, a lie!
Everyone calm down, let him speak.
Please, not like this.
Mara had scrubbed floors for families who never learned her name, but nothing prepared her for the night a desperate single father knelt before her with a trembling request. Marry him by sunrise, or his sick little daughter would be taken away forever. He was poor, exhausted, and alone. His child, Lily, clung to a faded blanket and whispered, "Please don't let them send me away." So Mara said yes. She expected hardship. She expected gossip. She even expected hunger. What she did not expect was the mansion hidden behind her husband's worn coat, or the cold, glittering eyes of the family waiting inside it. They called her a beggar, a servant, a stain on their name. Her new husband said nothing, and Mara's heart shattered in silence. But when the cruelest insult drove Lily to tears, the little girl stepped forward with a secret no one in that room was ready to hear. A secret about the woman they had buried. A secret about the marriage they had tried to destroy. And when Mara finally looked at her husband, she realized the poorest man she had ever met had been hiding the richest truth of all. When Alina agreed to marry Daniel Hale, the town pitied her. She was only a maid with worn shoes, empty pockets, and no family powerful enough to protect her. He was a struggling single father, drowning in debt, raising a fragile little girl who needed treatment he could not afford. The marriage was supposed to be a cold bargain. Alina would become little Lily's mother on paper, and Daniel would use the wedding gift from distant relatives to save his daughter's life. But from the moment Alina stepped into Daniel's grand family estate, whispers followed her like shadows. They called her a gold digger, a beggar bride, a woman unworthy of even sitting at their table. Alina endured every insult in silence, believing Daniel was just as helpless as she was. She had no idea the shabby coat, quiet manners, and poor widower act were hiding a secret that could destroy everyone who mocked her. Then, during a cruel family dinner, little Lily stood up with tears in her eyes and revealed what she had overheard behind closed doors. And in that moment, Alina discovered her forced marriage was never what it seemed. Mara did not believe in miracles anymore. She believed in rent notices slipped under doors. She believed in rice stretched with water until it became soup. She believed in washing other people's white curtains until her knuckles cracked, then returning home to a room where the curtains were old newspaper taped against the window. Most of all, she believed in her son. Noah was 10, thin as a reed, serious as an old man, and far too kind for the world that had been given to him. Every morning, before the sun rose over the rusted roofs of East Marrow, he sat on the edge of their mattress and polished his school shoes with the corner of his sleeve. "Mama," he would say, "one day I'll buy you a house with stairs." "Why stairs?" Mara always asked. "So you can come down them slowly like the ladies in movies." She would laugh, though laughter had become something she saved carefully, like coins in a jar. Noah was not supposed to attend Westbridge Academy. Children from East Marrow did not go to schools with marble floors, robotics clubs, and mothers who arrived at pickup in cars that looked like sleeping panthers. But Noah had won a scholarship after solving a math test that had made even the headmaster remove his glasses and stare at him. Mara had cried that day, quietly, in the hallway behind the principal's office. She had cried because she was proud. She had cried because the uniform cost more than a week of groceries. She had cried because her late husband, Tomas, had once promised that their child would count stars and numbers both, then disappeared into debt, sickness, and the earth before Noah turned 4. So Mara worked. She cleaned offices before dawn. She washed dishes at the hospital cafeteria after noon. At night, she took laundry from the gated homes of people who never imagined their silk shirts passed through the hands of a woman who sometimes skipped dinner so her son could have eggs. It was on a rainy Thursday that everything began to change. Mara had been leaving the hospital with a bag of uniforms when she heard tires scream. A black car had stopped crookedly at the curb. A boy stood frozen in the street, his school bag open, papers spilling around his feet like startled birds. A delivery van skidded toward him, horn blaring. Mara dropped the laundry. She ran. The world narrowed to rain, headlights, and the terrified face of a child who could not move. Mara reached him, grabbed him around the shoulders, and pulled him back so hard they both stumbled onto the pavement. The van missed them by inches and splashed muddy water across her dress. For a moment, the boy only stared at her. He was maybe 8, with soft brown eyes and hair that curled at the edges. His lips trembled, but no sound came out. "You're safe," Mara said, holding his shoulders gently. "Look at me, breathe." The boy obeyed in short, broken breaths. A man rushed from the black car. He was not dressed like the fathers at Westbridge. His coat was old. His shoes were muddy. His face had the tiredness of someone who had been running from something for a long time. "Leo," he cried, dropping to his knees beside the boy. The child clung to him. The man looked at Mara with the sort of gratitude that made her uncomfortable, because gratitude from strangers always felt temporary. "You saved my son," he said. Mara brushed rain from her face. "Anyone would have." "No," the man said quietly. "Many people saw him, only you moved." Something in his voice made her look at him more carefully. He seemed poor, yes, but not careless. His eyes were sharp, watchful, and deeply wounded. "Take him home," Mara said. "He's shaken." The man nodded. "What's your name?" "Mara." "Mara," he repeated, as though he were placing the name somewhere safe. "I'm Elias." "No last name, just Elias." Behind him, Leo sniffed and wiped his face. "You're Noah's mom." Mara blinked. "You know Noah." The boy nodded. "He helps me with maths." That was how Mara learned that her son had been spending lunch breaks in the quiet corner of Westbridge's library, teaching fractions and long division to a boy whose father arrived in an old coat, but whose driver waited down the street in a car with tinted windows. Noah confessed that evening. "He gets confused when the teacher goes fast," he said, cheeks warm with embarrassment, "and sometimes he cries." "Cries?" Noah looked down at his workbook. "Not loud, just when somebody says, 'Mother, his mom died 2 years ago, he misses her, I tell him numbers don't leave, they stay where you put them.'" Mara turned away before her son saw her eyes fill. She had taught Noah to be careful with his kindness. The world had a habit of punishing soft hearts, but she had never taught him to be hard. The next day, while cleaning the hospital's private waiting room, Mara found an envelope beneath a chair. It was thick, cream-colored, and sealed with a broken strip of tape. At first, she thought it held medical papers. Then she opened it enough to see bundles of cash. $50,000. Her hands went cold. She looked around the empty room. Rain tapped the windows. Somewhere down the corridor, a nurse laughed. The money sat in Mara's lap like a test designed by a cruel heaven. $50,000 could change everything. It could pay 6 months of rent. It could buy Noah books, shoes, vitamins, a desk. It could clear the debt that had followed Tomas into the grave and attached itself to Mara like a shadow. It could give her 1 night of sleep without counting every coin. But on the outside of the envelope, written in dark blue ink, were 3 words. E. Vale, personal. Mara knew that name. Everyone knew that name. Elias Vale was the richest man in the country. The Vale family owned towers, hotels, hospitals, shipping ports, newspapers, and half the city's skyline. His face appeared in magazines at grocery stands, though rarely in recent years. After his first wife died, people said he had become strange. Some said he had married again for business. Some said his new wife was glamorous, ruthless, and never seen without diamonds. Some said his children were being hidden away because the family was at war. Mara stared at the envelope until the name blurred. Then she did what poverty had never managed to steal from her. She returned it. The address on a small card inside the envelope led her not to a tower, but to a discreet office behind a charity clinic. A receptionist with perfect nails looked Mara over as though she had tracked mud across a palace floor. "I found this," Mara said. "It belongs to Mr. Vale." The receptionist's expression changed when she opened the envelope. Within minutes, Elias appeared. Not the poor Elias from the rain, not exactly. He still wore a simple coat, but two men in dark suits stood behind him, and the receptionist lowered her eyes when he entered. Mara's heart began to pound. "You," he said. "You dropped this." His gaze moved from the envelope to her face. "You opened it. Only enough to see what it was. And you brought it back. It wasn't mine." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, from behind him, another voice sliced through the room. "How touching!" A woman stood at the doorway, dressed in ivory, her hair pinned with a diamond clip shaped like a knife. She was beautiful in a cold, polished way, the kind of beauty that made people straighten their backs before they knew why. Elia's face closed. "Victoria," he said. The woman smiled without warmth. "You are giving money to maids now." Mara stepped back. "I don't want anything." Victoria's eyes swept over her faded dress and worn shoes. "They always say that at first." Elia's voice sharpened. "Enough." But Victoria's gaze had already turned poisonous. Mara left quickly, clutching her empty bag, feeling as though she had walked into a room where old hatred had mistaken her for its target. She did not know that Victoria Arden Vale, the woman society still called Elias Vale's wife, even though their marriage had cracked behind closed doors months earlier, watched her from the window. She did not know Victoria had spent 2 years fighting ghosts. The ghost of Elias' first wife, Elena, whose portrait still hung in the West Hall, the ghost of a love she had never been able to replace, the ghost of children who did not call her mother. And she did not know that Victoria had seen Elias look at Mara with something more dangerous than desire. Trust. That evening, Mara found 2 women waiting outside her building. They were overdressed for East Marrow, their perfume reaching her before their words did. One was tall with sharp red nails. The other had a small jeweled purse and a smile that belonged in a courtroom. "You're Mara?" the tall one asked. Mara shifted her grocery bag to the other arm. "Who's asking?" The shorter woman laughed. "Listen to that. She returns a little money and thinks she's important." A chill passed through Mara. Victoria's sisters. She knew it before they said another word. They followed her up the stairs, ignoring her order to leave. Inside the room, Noah rose from the table, pencil in hand. His math books lay open beside a chipped mug of tea. "Mama." "Go to Mrs. Adami's room," Mara said. But the tall sister stepped in front of the door. "No, let him watch. Children should learn what happens when their mothers chase married men." Mara's throat tightened. "I returned money I found, that is all." The jeweled purse snapped open and closed. "My sister knows your kind." They mocked her curtains, her cracked cups, her son's patched uniform. They called her thief, beggar, and worse. When Mara tried to push past them to get Noah out, one sister grabbed her arm while the other shoved the grocery bag from her hand. Rice spilled across the floor like tiny bones. Noah shouted. Mara did not remember every second after that. She remembered the sting of a slap. She remembered her shoulders striking the wall. She remembered Noah trying to stand between her and women twice his size. She remembered one of them tearing his workbook in half and saying, "Scholarship rat." That was when something in Mara went still. She stopped crying. She stopped pleading. She knelt, picked up the torn workbook, and pressed the pages to her chest. "Leave," she said. There was nothing loud in her voice, nothing dramatic, but the sisters paused. Perhaps they heard in it what Mara herself heard, a door closing. They left with threats trailing behind them, saying Victoria would ruin her if she ever went near Elias again. That night, Noah fell asleep with his hand in hers. Mara sat awake until dawn. There was a bruise on her cheek and rice still trapped beneath the table legs. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Noah's torn workbook, not the slap, not the shove, the workbook. A child's work, a child's hope. By morning, she had decided to remove herself from anything connected to Elia's veil. But fate had already placed her name in his house. Elias came at sunset. He stood outside her building alone, rain darkening his collar. Mara almost shut the door in his face. "I know what Victoria's sisters did," he said. "Good, then tell your wife she has nothing to fear from me. She is not my wife in any way that matters." Mara laughed once, bitterly. "That sounds like something rich men say when poor women get hurt." Pain moved through his face. "You're right to hate me," he said, "but I didn't send them. I didn't know until Leo told me Noah wasn't at school and I asked why." Noah told Leo. Leo came home crying. He said Noah's workbook was torn because of him. Mara looked past Elias to the street. "Your problems are not my problems, Mr. Vale." "Elias," he said softly. "No, Mr. Vale, because Elias was the poor man in the rain. Mr. Vale is the man whose world can enter my room and humiliate my child." He accepted the blow without flinching. "I can pay for the damage," he said, then stopped when Mara's eyes hardened. "No, that was wrong, I'm sorry." A long silence passed. Then he said, "There's something else." Mara should have closed the door. Instead, some instinct, the same one that had made her run into the road for Leo, kept her there. "My daughter is sick," Elias said. "Lily, she has a heart condition. It's controlled, but stress makes it worse. My family is trying to take custody of her and Leo. Victoria is helping them. They plan to argue I am unstable, absent, and surrounded by scandal. Your name is already in their mouths." Mara stared at him. "My name? They are going to claim you are my mistress, that I gave you cash, that you inserted yourself into my children's lives through Noah. My son helped your son because he was kind." "I know." "Then fix it." "I'm trying." But the words sounded tired, too tired for a man who could buy judges, towers, and silence. Later Mara would learn why. The Vale family's wealth was not a single mountain Elias stood on. It was a battlefield. Trusts, wills, guardianship clauses, board votes, old signatures, medical reports, family secrets. His late wife Elena had left shares to her children, shares that would be controlled by whoever held guardianship if Elias was declared unfit. Victoria and Elias' uncle, Conrad Vale, had found doctors willing to exaggerate his grief, reporters willing to print rumors, and relatives willing to call his love for his dead wife madness. Elena had died 2 years ago after a sudden illness. Elias had buried her beneath white roses and never returned to the man he had been. Victoria had entered his life 6 months later through a business arrangement pushed by his family. She was beautiful, connected, and eager. She wanted the name. She wanted the mansion. She wanted the children quiet and grateful. But Leo cried whenever Victoria touched Elena's piano. And Lily hid whenever Victoria wore Elena's pearls. By the time Elias understood he had brought a wolf into his house, Victoria had already learned the locks. "My lawyer believes," Elias said slowly, "that the court may delay any guardianship transfer if I can prove the children have a stable maternal caregiver they trust." Mara's stomach dropped. "No. I haven't asked yet." "You don't need to. The answer is no. I can protect Noah." "You couldn't protect him yesterday." The words struck exactly where she aimed them. Elias looked away. "I know," he said. For one breath, he looked again like the man in the rain. Not a billionaire, not a name, but a father terrified of failing his children. Mara shut the door. For the next week, she avoided Westbridge Academy. Noah's teacher sent messages. Leo sent a folded note with only 2 lines. "I am sorry. Please tell Noah I finished page 42 by myself." Noah read it and cried quietly into his pillow. On Friday night, Lily appeared at Mara's door. She was small, pale, and wrapped in a faded blanket covered in yellow stars. Elias carried her up the stairs, his face grey with fear. I'm sorry, he said. She begged to see you. Lily lifted her head. Her eyes were enormous. Are you Noah's mother? Mara nodded slowly. He said you make soup when people are sad. Mara looked at Elias. She should be in bed. She refused to sleep, he said. The hearing is tomorrow. Conrad's people came to the house. Victoria told Lily she would be sent away to a boarding clinic if the judge agreed. Lily trembled. I don't want to go, she whispered. Mara's anger, which had kept her warm for days, cracked down the middle. She let them in. Lily sat at the table while Mara warmed soup. Noah came from behind the curtain. Sleepy-eyed, and Leo appeared from the hallway, shame-faced and hopeful. He had insisted on coming too. The room was too small for billionaires' children, too poor for their shoes, too fragile for the storm following them. Yet somehow, around that table, the children breathed easier. Noah showed Leo how to reduce fractions. Lily leaned against Mara and fell asleep before finishing her soup. Elias watched from the corner. There are moments when a life turns without asking permission. Not loudly, not with music. Sometimes a child simply falls asleep against you, trusting you with the full weight of her fear, and every wall you built becomes useless. Near midnight, Elias knelt. Not theatrically, not like a prince in a story, like a man whose pride had burned away. Marry me by sunrise, he said, voice shaking, or my daughter may be taken before noon. Mara froze. Noah stared at them both. Elias continued quickly. A temporary civil marriage, legal protection, full safeguards for you and Noah. You can leave once the guardianship threat is over. I'll put everything in writing. I'll never touch your freedom. Mara wanted to say he was insane. She wanted to ask why a man with a kingdom needed a woman with one mattress and a leaking ceiling. But Lily stirred in her sleep and whispered, please don't let them send me away. Mara closed her eyes. She thought of the road and Leo frozen in the headlights. She thought of Noah's torn workbook. She thought of the $50,000 she had returned because she wanted her son to live in a world where honesty still meant something. Then she thought of herself as a girl, standing outside a courthouse while her own mother begged relatives not to separate her children after their father died. Mara remembered the hand that had pulled her away from her brother. She remembered screaming until her throat hurt. She remembered promising that if she ever had the power to stop a child from being taken, she would. When she opened her eyes, Elias was still kneeling. Noah comes first, she said. Always. You don't lie to me again. His jaw tightened. I will tell you as much truth as I can without putting you in more danger. That sounds like a lie, wearing a clean shirt. It's the best I can do tonight. Mara looked at Noah. Her son nodded once. So she said yes. They married at dawn in a courthouse that smelled of dust and old paper. Mara wore her plain blue dress. Elias wore the same worn coat. Noah signed as witness with careful handwriting. Leo stood close to him. Lily held Mara's hand through the entire ceremony. When the clerk pronounced them married, Elias looked at Mara with gratitude so deep it frightened her. Thank you, he whispered. Mara did not answer. Outside, a black car waited. Mara stopped. I thought we were going to your house. We are, Elias said. The driver opened the door. Mara looked from the car to Elias. He seemed suddenly older. There is something I need to tell you before we arrive. But Lily coughed, a small painful sound, and Elias' attention snapped to her. He lifted her into the car and told the driver to hurry. Mara climbed in, with a knot forming in her stomach. The city changed outside the windows. East Marrow's broken sidewalks gave way to clean avenues, iron gates, and houses hidden behind walls of flowering vines. The car turned up a private road lined with cypress trees. At the top stood a mansion, the color of winter. Mara stared. Not a house. A world. Columns rose like pale giants. Fountains flashed in the morning light, windows watched from every floor. She turned slowly to Elias. His worn coat, she realized, was not proof of poverty, it was camouflage. "Who are you?" she asked. Before he could answer, the front doors opened. A line of servants stood inside the marble hall. Behind them waited a family dressed in black and silver, their faces arranged into polite disgust. At the center stood Victoria. Her smile was sharp enough to cut silk. "Well," she said, looking Mara up and down, "the maid made it to the mansion." Mara stepped back, but Noah's hand found hers. Elias stood very still. "Victoria," he said, "you will not speak to her that way." But an older man with a silver cane laughed. "Conrad Vale." Elias' uncle looked like a portrait that had learned contempt. "You drag a street woman into this house under a marriage certificate and expect us to offer tea." Another woman, Elias' Aunt Beatrice, lifted a lace handkerchief to her nose. "She smells of public buses." Victoria's sisters stood near the staircase, the same women who had invaded Mara's room. One smiled and wiggled her fingers in greeting. Noah went rigid. Mara felt him tremble. Elias saw it, his hands curled into fists. For a second, Mara believed he would defend them. Instead, his lawyer, a quiet woman named Ms. Imani, touched his sleeve and whispered something. Elias' face turned to stone. He said nothing. The silence hit Mara harder than the insults. Victoria noticed. "Oh dear," she said softly, "did you think he married you because you mattered?" Mara's cheeks burned. "Elias collects broken things," Victoria continued. "A grieving son, a sick daughter, a dead wife's memory, now a poor maid with a clever little boy." Elias took one step forward, but Ms. Imani stopped him again. Conrad's cane tapped the floor. "This marriage will be annulled. The court will see what it is, a desperate trick performed by an unstable man." "A trick," Mara said quietly. Every eye turned to her. She had not planned to speak. She wanted only to take Noah and run back to their room, where at least poverty had the decency to be honest. But something about that marble hall, with its glittering cruelty and spotless floors, made her remember every floor she had ever scrubbed. People like this believed silence was proof that they were right. So Mara lifted her chin. "If this house is what wealth does to people," she said, "then I thank God I arrived poor." A servant near the wall lowered his eyes quickly, hiding a smile. Victoria's face tightened. "Careful," she said. "You are here because a frightened man needed a signature." "No," Noah said. His small voice rang through the hall. Mara turned, "Noah." But he stepped forward, clutching his torn workbook, which he had brought like evidence. "She's here because Lily asked," he said, "and because Leo cries when people talk about his mother, and because nobody in this big house seems to know how to be kind." The hall went silent. Leo's eyes filled. Victoria's mouth opened, but Lily suddenly pulled away from Elias and walked toward the staircase. She was pale, breathing carefully, her star blanket dragging behind her. "You said my mama wanted me gone," Lily said to Victoria. Victoria stiffened. "Sweetheart, you're confused. You said Papa made Mama sad. You said Mama told you I was weak." Elia's face changed. "What?" he whispered. Lily reached into the pocket of her cardigan and pulled out a small gold locket. Victoria's sisters exchanged a glance. Mara saw it. A flash of fear. The locket was old, oval-shaped, with a tiny rose engraved on the front. Lily held it tight. "Mama didn't say that." Conrad snapped, "Take the child upstairs, she is unwell." "No," Lily said. For the first time, her voice was firm. "She left me a secret." Victoria went white. The air in the hall seemed to thin. Lily turned to Elias. "I didn't tell you because Aunt Victoria said if I talked about Mama's locket, Leo would be sent away, but Noah said secrets that hurt children are bad secrets. Noah stared at the floor, suddenly shy. Lily opened the locket. Inside was not a picture. It was a tiny folded strip of paper, worn soft at the edges. Elias took it with shaking hands. "Elena's handwriting," he said. Victoria moved quickly, too quickly. "Give that to me, it's private family property." Mara stepped between her and Lily before thinking. Victoria stopped inches away, fury burning in her eyes. Elias unfolded the paper. His face drained of color as he read. Then he looked at Conrad. "You told me there was no letter." Conrad's expression did not move. Grief makes men imagine things. Ms. Imani stepped forward. "Read it aloud." Elias swallowed. "My dearest Elias," he began, voice breaking on the name. "If this reaches you, then I was right to be afraid of the people smiling around us. Do not let Conrad control the children's trust. Do not let Victoria near Lily's medical papers. She has been asking questions no loving woman would ask." Victoria laughed, brittle and high. "A forgery." Elias kept reading. "And if you ever meet the woman from St. Jude's Charity Kitchen, the one with the copper bracelet, trust her. She returned my wedding ring when I lost it there, though she had nothing. She reminded me goodness survives in places our family refuses to see." Mara stopped breathing. Her copper bracelet. She looked down at her wrist. Old, dented, the only thing she still had from her mother. A memory rose, sudden and bright. 2 years earlier, before Elena Vale's death had filled the newspapers, Mara had worked 3 nights a week at St. Jude's Charity Kitchen. One evening, a thin woman in a scarf had helped serve soup. She wore no diamonds, no makeup, no sign of being anyone important. She had dropped a ring near the sink. Mara found it after closing, a band with a hidden engraving. When Mara returned it, the woman had held her hand and said, "You don't know what this means." Mara had shrugged. "It's yours." The woman had looked at Mara's bracelet. "My daughter would like you." Mara had thought she meant nothing by it. Now, in the Vale mansion, Elias stared at the bracelet, as if seeing Mara for the first time. "You met Elena," he said. "I didn't know who she was." Lily nodded eagerly. "Mama told me about the soup lady. She said if I ever got lost, I should look for helpers, not rich people." A sound escaped Elias, half laugh, half sob. Victoria's face twisted. "This is sentimental nonsense." But Lily was not finished. She also made a video. Conrad's cane slipped slightly against the marble. Ms. Imani's eyes sharpened. "Where?" Lily pointed upward. "In Mama's piano." For the first time since Mara had entered the mansion, the cruel family looked afraid. They moved to the music room together, though Conrad protested, Beatrice complained, and Victoria insisted Lily needed rest. Elias carried his daughter, one arm around Leo, as if both children might vanish. The music room was covered in white sheets. Dust softened the edges of expensive things. At the center stood a grand piano, black and gleaming, with a framed photograph on top. Elena Vale smiled from the picture. She had been beautiful, yes, but not like Victoria. Elena's beauty seemed unguarded, human. Mara remembered flour on her sleeve at the charity kitchen, laughter in her tired eyes. Lily pointed to the underside of the piano bench. "Noah found the loose part," she said. Noah flushed as everyone looked at him. "Leo told me his mom used to hide birthday clues there. I thought maybe." Elias knelt and felt beneath the bench. A small panel shifted. Inside was a flash drive wrapped in silk. Victoria turned toward the door. Mara noticed, so did Ms. Imani. "Stay," the lawyer said. A servant brought a laptop. The drive opened after Elias typed a password Leo guessed. "Elena loved lilies," Leo whispered. "Try Lily Leo." The video began. Elena appeared on screen, thinner than in her photograph, a scarf around her hair. Her voice filled the room, gentle but steady. Elias, my love, if you are watching this, forgive me. I wanted to be wrong. Elias covered his mouth. Mara looked away, feeling like an intruder in someone else's grief, but Lily reached for her hand and held on. On the screen, Elena explained what she had discovered. Conrad had been moving money from the Children's Trust through Shell Charities. Victoria, then working with the family as a consultant, had gained access to Lily's medical schedule and private records. Elena feared they were preparing to challenge Elia's fitness if she died. No gruesome accusation, no dramatic confession of murder, something quieter and colder. Documents, manipulation, greed wearing perfume. I have placed copies with Attorney Imani, Elena said, but if she is blocked, this recording must protect the children. Elias, do not let them turn your grief into a cage. Leo needs patience. Lily needs tenderness. And if the woman with the copper bracelet ever crosses your path again, remember what I told you. Honesty is not small just because it lives in a small room. Mara's tears fell before she could stop them. Victoria whispered, turn it off. Elena continued. To my children, if you see this one day, I did not leave because I wanted to. I loved you past my last morning. Lily, my brave flower, your softness is not weakness. Leo, my little star, numbers may feel safer than people, but let good people find you. And Elias live, not for the company, for them. The video ended. No one spoke. Then Leo broke away from Elias and ran to Noah. He hugged him with the desperate strength of a child who had been lonely too long. Your mom was right, Noah whispered. Numbers stay, but people can stay too. Victoria's mask shattered first. This proves nothing, she said. A sick woman's paranoia, a maid's coincidence, a child's fantasy. Ms. Imani lifted her phone. It proves enough to reopen Elena's sealed filings. And since Mrs. Mara Vale was publicly accused by you yesterday and assaulted by your sisters, I imagine the police will be interested in the timing. Mrs. Mara Vale. The name struck Mara strangely. Victoria's sisters began speaking at once, blaming each other, blaming Victoria, blaming confusion and emotion and misunderstandings. Conrad demanded his driver. Beatrice sat down as though her bones had melted. Elias did not look at them. He looked at Mara. There was shame in his eyes, shame for the silence in the hall, shame for the danger he had brought to her door, shame for secrets he had mistaken for protection. I should have told you before we arrived, he said. Yes, Mara replied. I should have stopped them the moment they spoke. Yes. Imani told me their words would help prove intent in front of witnesses. I listened because I was afraid of losing the children. Mara's voice softened, but only slightly. And in that fear, you let my child stand in a room where the women who hurt us smiled at him. Elias closed his eyes. You're right. The richest man in the country stood before her, with nothing to purchase forgiveness. That mattered. But it was not enough. By afternoon, the mansion had changed. Police came quietly. Lawyers arrived in waves. Staff who had endured Victoria's cruelty began giving statements. One maid admitted she had seen Victoria's sisters return the night of Mara's humiliation, laughing about teaching the charity woman manners. A driver confirmed Victoria had ordered him to follow Mara from the clinic. A nurse from Lily's care team produced messages showing Victoria had tried to exaggerate Lily's condition to argue for institutional care. Conrad Vale's empire of whispers began to crack. Mara stayed only because Lily refused to let go of her hand. Noah sat in the library with Leo, tapping his torn workbook page by page. Elias had offered to replace it with new books, a tutor, a tablet, anything. Noah had politely asked for tape. I want this one, he said. It remembers. That evening, Mara found Elias alone in the garden. The mansion's wealth spread around them. Fountains, roses, trimmed hedges, stone angels. Yet Elias sat on a bench with his elbows on his knees, looking more like the poor father from the rain than the billionaire from the newspapers. Elena knew you, he said without turning. Only for 10 minutes. Sometimes 10 minutes shows more truth than 10 years. Mara sat at the far end of the bench. For a while, they listened to the fountain. Victoria was never supposed to become what she became, Elias said. My family pushed the marriage after Elena died. They said the children needed a mother and the company needed stability. I was drowning. I signed papers I barely read. By the time I woke up, she had moved into my house, my calendar, my staff, my children's routines. When I tried to end it, Conrad threatened custody. You could have told the world. I thought power meant silence, control, strategy. He looked at her. Then you returned $50,000 with a bruise on your shoe and made me feel poorer than I have ever felt. Mara almost smiled. Almost. My mother used to say, she said, a lie in a palace is still a lie. She sounds wise. She died tired. So did Elena. The words sat between them gently. Mara looked toward the house. Through the window, she could see Noah and Leo bent over a book. Lily sat beside them, wrapped in her star blanket, watching like she belonged to the small circle they made. What happens now? Mara asked. The court hearing was postponed after Imani filed Elena's recording. Conrad's accounts are frozen pending investigation. Victoria is being questioned, her sisters too. And our marriage. He was quiet for a long moment. It can be annulled, he said. The agreement protects you. You and Noah can return home tonight with security, financial compensation, anything you need. Or nothing, if that is what you prefer. Mara laughed softly. You rich people always think the choices are money or pride. What are they then? Trust or no trust? Elias bowed his head. I know. She stood. Lily needs rest. Noah needs dinner. Leo probably needs someone to remind him math is not a hiding place. And you? Elias asked. Mara did not answer immediately. She looked at the mansion, the roses, the windows full of ghosts. She thought of the girl she had been outside the courthouse, losing her brother to relatives who spoke of best interests while dividing children like furniture. She thought of Elena's face on the screen. She thought of Victoria's sisters in her room and the way Noah had stood between fear and love. I need time, she said. Elias nodded. Then time is yours. Mara stayed one night. Then 3. Then a week. Not as a wife in the way gossip columns would have loved. Not as a maid elevated into silk by a grateful billionaire. She stayed because Lily's fever rose whenever strangers came too close. Because Leo would only do his homework if Noah sat beside him. Because Noah, for the first time since Tomas died, laughed loudly in a room big enough to echo. And because Elias did not ask her to forgive him quickly. He proved himself in small ways, which Mara trusted more than grand ones. He dismissed staff who had helped Victoria intimidate others, but he did not punish those who had been too afraid to speak. He reopened St. Jude's charity kitchen under Elena's foundation and put former servants on the board. He asked Noah's permission before replacing his torn workbook, then framed one repaired page in the library with a small plaque that read, "Some things worth saving are not new." When reporters camped outside the gates, Elias faced them alone. Mara Vale returned money that was not hers, he said. She saved my son's life. Her child helped mine when this family failed him. Any insult directed at her is an insult to me. A reporter shouted, "Is the marriage real?" Elias paused. Behind the curtains, Mara watched with her heart in her throat. He answered, "The respect is real, the gratitude is real, the rest belongs to her." That was the first time Mara cried for a reason that did not feel like pain. Victoria's downfall unfolded over months, not with one dramatic scream, but through documents, hearings, signatures, and testimonies. Her sisters tried to claim they had only meant to warn Mara, but the torn workbook and witness statements told another story. They were ordered to stay away. Conrad's influence shrank as investigators uncovered what Elena had tried to reveal before her death. The court confirmed Elia's full custody of Leo and Lily. Elena's trust was protected. Victoria lost the right to use the Vale name, though society was slower to stop whispering it. Through it all, Mara waited for the mansion to reject her. It never did. Or perhaps it tried, and she simply refused to be swallowed. She changed the breakfast room first. The long table had made the children sit too far apart, so she ordered meals served in the sunny kitchen instead. The chef, terrified at first, relaxed when Mara complimented his pepper soup and asked for extra plantains. She opened the locked nursery where Elena's things had been stored, not to erase grief, but to let air into it. Lily chose 3 of her mother's scarves to keep. Leo chose Elena's old geometry compass. One afternoon, Mara found him crying under the piano. She lowered herself carefully to the floor beside him. "I forgot her voice," Leo whispered. "Then I remembered it from the video, and now I'm scared I'll forget again." Mara did not tell him not to cry. She had learned children hated being comforted with lies. "Noah says numbers stay," she said, "but voices can stay too. We'll record the stories people remember. Your father, Lily, the cook, Ms. Imani, everyone who knew her. We'll make a book of her." Leo leaned against her. "Will you write in it too? I only knew her for 10 minutes. She said 10 minutes mattered." So Mara wrote about the charity kitchen, about a woman in a scarf who laughed when soup splashed her sleeve, about a wedding ring found near a sink, about the way Elena had looked at Mara's copper bracelet as though recognizing an old friend. Lily asked for the story every night. Again, she would say, tucked beneath her star blanket. Mara told it until Lily could mouth the words with her. Noah changed too. At first he moved through the mansion carefully, touching nothing. Then Elias gave him full access to the library and the boy came alive. He read books on engineering, astronomy, architecture, and number theory. He still helped Leo with math, but now Leo helped him with courage. "Ask for things," Leo told him once. Noah frowned. "Like what?" "Like more paper, or snacks, or if you don't understand rich people forks." Noah considered this. "I don't understand rich people forks." "Nobody does," Leo said solemnly. They became brothers long before adults knew what to call them. Mara and Elias remained cautious around each other. There were moments. A brush of hands over Lily's medicine schedule. A shared smile when Noah corrected Elias' arithmetic during a foundation meeting. A late-night conversation in the kitchen after a nightmare woke both children. Elias would make tea badly, and Mara would remake it without comment. One night, rain struck the windows exactly as it had on the day she saved Leo. Elias found Mara in the hallway, holding a candle after the lights flickered. "You're not afraid of storms," he said. "I'm afraid of bills. Storms are just loud." He laughed softly. Then he said, "I was afraid of you." Mara turned, "Me. Of what you made me see, that I had confused protecting my children with controlling every door around them. Elena used to tell me love is not a vault." "She sounds annoying." "She was," he said, smiling with tears in his eyes, brilliantly. Mara's heart shifted. Not enough to forget, enough to begin. The next morning, Lily asked if Mara would come to Parents' Day at school. Mara froze with a spoon halfway to the porridge. Elias looked up from his coffee. Leo pretended not to listen. Noah grinned into his bowl. "Parents' Day," Mara repeated. Lily nodded. "Papa comes, but I want you too, because when the teacher says draw your family, I draw you." Mara's throat closed. She wanted to say she was not sure. She wanted to hide behind technicalities, agreements, annulments, the fact that she had entered their lives through panic and paperwork. But Lily's eyes held no legal confusion. Only love. "Yes," Mara said, "I'll come." At Westbridge, mothers stared. Some recognized Mara as the maid who used to arrive in a faded dress. Some had heard enough gossip to burn with curiosity. Victoria's friends gathered near the refreshment table like polished crows. One whispered loudly, "How inspiring! Charity really can climb." Mara stiffened. Before she could speak, Leo turned around. "She saved my life," he said. "What have you done today?" Noah choked on juice. Elias coughed into his hand. Mara gave Leo a look that said both thank you and behave. But she walked taller after that. The children's classroom displayed family drawings on the wall. Noah had drawn Mara with a crown, which embarrassed her until she noticed the crown was made of pencils. Leo had drawn Elias, Elena as a star, Lily, Noah, and Mara standing in front of a giant equation. Lily's drawing was the simplest. A small house. 5 people holding hands. Above them, in uneven letters, she had written, "Home is who stays." Mara stood before it for a long time. That evening, she went to Elia's study. He was reading documents, glasses low on his nose. He looked up immediately, as he always did when she entered, as though nothing on paper could be more important. "I don't want the annulment," she said. The word surprised even her. Elias went still. Mara lifted a hand, not because of money, not because of pressure, and not because the children need a convenient answer. He rose slowly. "Then why?" "Because I have spent my life being chosen last, by relatives, by employers, by men who liked my strength until they had to honor it." She took a breath. "You chose me first when you trusted me with Lily, then you failed me in the hall, then you stayed and learned what that failure cost." His eyes shone. "I love you," he said quietly, "but I was not going to put that weight on you." Mara looked at the shelves, the old wood, the rain-dark windows. "Love is not always weight," she said. "Sometimes it is a door." Elias came closer, stopping with enough space for her to choose. "And are you opening it?" he asked. Mara thought of the room in East Marrow, the spilled rice, the torn workbook, the charity kitchen, Elena's locket, Lily's hand in hers, Leo under the piano, Noah dreaming of a house with stairs. Then she stepped forward. "Yes," she said. Their marriage did not become a fairy tale. Fairy tales end too early. Real love had schedules, therapy for the children, court dates, school projects, foundation meetings, nightmares, apologies, and breakfast arguments about whether Lily could keep a stray cat she found near the greenhouse. She kept the cat. Mara insisted on continuing work through Elena's foundation, not as a symbolic wife smiling beside checks, but as director of housing and education programs for single mothers. The first grant went to East Marrow. At the opening of the new community center, Mara stood before a crowd in a simple cream dress. Her copper bracelet gleamed on her wrist. She saw women like herself in the audience, tired women, proud women, women holding children and grocery bags and hope by the thinnest thread. Elias stood at the back with Noah, Leo, and Lily. He did not stand beside Mara to own the moment. He stood behind her to support it. "My mother once told me," Mara said into the microphone, "that poverty is loud, but shame is taught. I believed for a long time that because I had little, I had to ask softly for space in this world. I was wrong." The room quieted. A woman can have empty pockets and still be rich in honor. A child can come from one room and still carry a mind wide enough to change another child's life. A stranger can return money and be called a fool by people who have sold their souls for less. Elias smiled faintly. Mara continued, "This center is for anyone who has been told they are too poor to be trusted, too ordinary to be seen, too broken to be chosen. You are seen, you are welcome, and you do not have to earn dignity. You were born with it." Applause rose like rain on a roof. Afterward, an old woman approached Mara with tears in her eyes and pressed a small paper bag into her hands. "For the children," she said. Inside were 5 oranges. Mara held them as carefully as if they were diamonds. That night, back at the mansion, Lily asked for the story again. Not Alina's ring this time. The story of when Papa tricked you with the ugly coat. Elias groaned. Must we call it ugly? It was very ugly, Noah said. Historic, Elias corrected. Ugly historic, Leo added. Mara laughed. They were in the smaller sitting room now, the one Alina had once loved. Her portrait remained above the fireplace, not as a ghost haunting them, but as part of the family's sky. Lily sat against Mara's side. Leo leaned on Noah. Elias sat on the rug because the cat had taken his chair. Mara began. Once there was a poor maid who thought she knew what poverty looked like. And she was right, Lily asked. She was partly right. Poverty can look like worn shoes and empty cupboards, but sometimes poverty looks like a mansion full of people who have forgotten kindness. Lily nodded solemnly. And richness, Leo asked. Mara looked at Elias. He looked back at her the way he had in the courthouse, in the garden, in every moment he had learned to tell the truth without armor. Richness, Mara said, is what you still have when all the money is taken out of the room. Noah smiled, like tape for a torn workbook. Like soup, Lily said. Like maths, Leo added. Elias reached for Mara's hand. Like a woman who returned $50,000, he said. Mara squeezed his fingers, like a man who finally learned that silence can hurt. He bowed his head in acceptance, and speaking can heal. Outside, rain began to fall over the Vale mansion. It washed the marble steps, the garden stones, the long road leading down to the city. It fell on East Marrow's roofs and Westbridge's towers, on charity kitchens and courthouse windows, on the grave of women who had loved fiercely and left secrets behind to protect their children. Mara listened to it, with Lily breathing against her shoulder and Noah laughing beside the fire. Once she had dreamed only of surviving. Now she lived in a house with stairs. But when she came down them in the morning, she did not move like the ladies in movies. She moved like herself. A maid, a mother, a wife, a woman who had been mocked, bruised, underestimated, and still had not surrendered her name. And at the bottom of the stairs, every day, were the people who had learned the truth Elena Vale had hidden in a locket, the truth Lily had been brave enough to reveal, the truth no cruel family could bury forever. The richest heart in the mansion had never belonged to the person with the most money. It belonged to the one who chose love when fear would have been easier.